Okay, this is a card that I made this last weekend for a baby shower I went to yesterday, and I needed an envelope. So I went to an interesting place online that we've showed before, but it was a little bit different today, and I thought I'd just show you how it worked. I went to a site to make this envelope for it. The reason I needed to do that, I needed it in a hurry, and I needed a 7-inch wide, or 7-inch this way high, and 7 3/4 inches wide, so it was going to fit my project. So what I did was go to this site, www.templatemaker.n1 online, and they have some very interesting templates here. The other day when I went there to make my envelope, they didn't have all these. They revised the site and they've been adding more and more templates. So here's the envelope maker right here. So I thought I would show you how to do an envelope really quickly using this template maker plus Make the Cut. So you can see template, I think that's a 1, no, it's an L, .nl, www.templatemaker.nl. If you click on the envelope, we just go over here to where the envelope is, you'll see that you have the option to choose your units. So I use inches, and then you type in the width and the height and create, or you can click more options. So I'll click more options to see what happens here. Okay, so I'm going to click inches, and the dimensions that I needed were 7.5 inches wide, and I needed a height of 7 inches. And then they give you some expert settings if you want a larger overlap or larger margins or rounded corners. And then they also give you a file format to export in, PDF or SVG. There are 2 different results depending on which one of these options you choose. So I'll start with the PDF option, and then I'll show you the SVG. And when you're ready, you click on Create. And when you click on Create, you get this template, which was designed originally for printing and just cutting by hand, which you can do if you want. But I don't want to cut by hand. My hands hurt from arthritis and carpal tunnel, so I like to use my cutter. I right-click on this image and Save As, and then I'll just save it to my desktop, and click on, still wants to go to my fonts, let's see, okay, save. So it went to my desktop as a template envelope in the right size. So I'm going to go into Make the Cut and just start a new project here. And in order to bring in PDF files, you click on this PDF icon at the top of your screen, and then you go find the file you just saved. And this was template envelope 7.5 by 7 inches, and I click on Open. And then I get that template in there. Now if you cut it just like it is right now, you're going to get 5 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we don't want our envelope in pieces. So there's a couple things we need to do. Very simple things. The first thing I like to try is to see if I can, if these were grouped. It doesn't say, they're all grouped, so I can't really send them to their own layers. What I do need to do is click on it to select the image I just imported and use Break down at the bottom, or Control B, to break these pieces apart. click away from it to deselect, and now I'm going to hold the Shift key and click on just the inside lines that I would like to be my scoring lines. So there's 4 of these lines. And I'm going to click on the smaller of the 2 green plus icons in the lower right corner of the screen, and that'll send my selected lines to their own layer. Now, if I close that eye for that layer, you can see that I have the cutting lines on one layer, on the default layer, and I have score lines on the new layer. I could label these. I'll just double click here and write score lines, and then I'll double click on this layer and call it cutting lines. Now I could cut as is, but it looks kind of ugly, and another thing is it's kind of off the mat. In order to move it and without separating pieces and getting them all in the wrong places, moving around, I'm going to use this arrow icon in the lower left corner to select all. Only I'm going to hide the score lines. I don't want to select them. Click on the eye icon on the right side of the screen to hide the score lines. So just the cut lines are selected, and then I'm going to click on the join icon, or Control-J, to join them all together. Now you'll notice that the shape is not filled. That means there are open paths, but it will still cut fine this way. All the pieces are together. But I think I would like very much to make this, close all the open paths. You know there are open paths by clicking on the figure 8 icon in the left corner, upper left corner, and then clicking on the pen, and you'll see everywhere there's green dots, there's open paths. And I would like to close them. To close them automatically, I'll go back to selection mode using the top arrow again, click on it to select all, then go to the wrench icon at the bottom, the advanced toolbar, and select fuse and weld. This will close the open paths, and now it's filled, so you know that all the open lines are all closed now. I'll just change this to light yellow. And then you have to decide if you want to have solid score lines like this and use an embossing tool or an engraving tool, or even score by hand. Might want to use these solid lines, or you could score with your blade set at a lower pressure. I would usually, if I were going to use the solid scored lines, I would hide the cutting lines and use my other tool, whether it be an embossing tool. I'd probably emboss 3 times with an embossing tool in my machine. Or I might just want to make these score lines to be dash lines so that I could cut them all at the same time. I click on Create New Line Style, and I like to separate them a little bit. Now, I like small dash lines, but I like to separate them, put a little more space between them. So now I have my score lines and I have my cut lines. I could send them all to the cutter at the same time. But right now the design's off the page. So what I want to do is select all pieces by clicking on this arrow in the lower left corner and click on the designs until I get the rotation handle, toggle to the rotation handle. I'm going to hold down the Control key and drag on this arrow 3 times. But I didn't select all, and you see it didn't rotate all together, I don't think. So I'm going to undo, Control Z. I'm going to select everything, Control A. hold the control key, now drag 3 times, and then move it up onto the mat. So I only need 1 piece of paper for all of this. And I think I'll join all of these together, clicking on the Select All Shapes and Join. That way I don't see all the selection boxes. And now you see what I have to cut. If I do it all in one pass, I can just go to Cut Project With and select my cutter. I think I use the Zing, and it just cut my project. And then I have my envelope. I'll fold. The way this goes together is that the side flaps are the short flaps. Then I can put some glue on the longer flaps here and fold them up overlap this side, and it makes a nice envelope. So I'll show you that picture again, what I did in my file here. Here's the envelope that I made. It's quick and easy. The other comment that I should make is that the size of this envelope, the dotted lines represent the size of my card. Enter the exact size that you want to enter. My card measured slightly less than 7 by 7.5, so it fit nicely in this envelope. But the envelope template does not give you any extra room, so you might want to calculate that in your measurements if you're doing a custom size envelope. So I did a few different sizes. I'll just show you quickly. This was a 7 by 7.5. This was a 4 by 10. Now, you notice that it was a little big for one piece of paper, so I cut off one end and put an extra flap on here to glue this on after it's cut out. It was still cut on one piece of paper, but I needed a legal size, not a legal size, but a number 10 envelope, 10 inches wide by 4 inches high. And so this was the size I made there. This is an 8.5 by 5.5. I wanted to see how big of an envelope could I make. And this is one size that I sometimes use, a half a sheet of paper for a card. I tried a 6 by 6 square, and it fit very nicely. And I found that I could do an 8 by 8 envelope, and anything larger might have to be pieced if it were square. Then I tried A2 size envelopes for the 4.25 by 5.5. That's the size of a rectangle. And I tried it a couple different ways. And I wanted to show you this because when I imported the SVG file, it brought in dash lines already, and it brought them in layers, which was kind of nice. I didn't have to go through all the layering stuff, but it did not import at the correct size. This was the PDF import on the left, and this was the SVG import from the template maker. So what I'd like to show you the SVG import and how to resize it. So to do that, I'll just get a new page here. Double click your cursor where you want the design to come in, and you click on the, well, first let's go to the template maker, and we'll try an envelope that is, we'll go to the envelope here with more options, and click on inch, and this time we'll do a width of 5.5 and a height of 4.25. And this time we'll select the option, leave the margins at the default, and then click on SVG, see what happens there. So you click on Create, and this is a, if you right-click on it and Save As, you end up with a PDF again. Well, we didn't want a PDF, so I'm going to back up a little bit. And instead of clicking on Create, I want to click on Download. See if it'll do a download. Now I clicked on Create, and it gave me the SVG. So I right-click here, Save As, and now it's going to save on my desktop as that envelope 5.5 by 4.25 inches in SVG. So now when I go to my new page and I click on the SVG icon at the top of the screen, and I find that file that I just saved, the SVG file, and open, I get a small shape. Notice that it's 4.2055 inches. Well, that's not what I wanted. That's very small. But when I come over here to the layer and I right-click on the layer name and I put to each its own, I end up with my score lines already on their own layer. I'll hide the other layers so you can see. There's the score lines, and they're already dashed. Now this will be fine if you want dashed score lines, but if you wanted them to be solid, there's no way to change them to solid. So if you want them to, let me see if I can change it to no dashes. Ooh, I can. So that's an option if you want to do it that way. The curved lines are still kind of broken up here. So but I think that's an extra line. If I delete it, let's see what I have. I'll type a 4 and a 3 and look really close at this. The line's still closed. Then I can do like I did before, and I can do the score lines first and my cut lines second. If I want to see that, if I want to close the open shapes on this, I'll hide the score lines, and I'll just select this again and go to the wrench and do a fuse and weld. And then I've got my closed shape, which I prefer for cutting. And now I have a design ready to go, either with solid lines or with to create dash lines, create new line style, and move this over. I've got dashed lines. Only problem is, if you remember, that the size is too small. But that's easily fixed. I did some calculations, and I put them in my note file here, so I'm going to view notes. And it says if you're importing SVG, increase the size by 253.28498%. I'm going to copy that.
Julie,
Yes.
it looks like there's a bug in their program that when they export it, they do, like, so you did 5 and 5.5, it actually puts it out in centimeters instead of inches. So if you do 254%, it should be exact.
So I got 2.53.2849%. And when I increase the size, to increase the size, with it, if the bug is their problem, then I select it here, and I'm going to leave the lock icon here, and I'm going to just copy that number here, 2.8498%, and press enter. Then I get my exact correct size. To make sure that's true, I made my 5.25 by 4.25 square representing my card, and when I did the multiply, when I resized by the percent, I got the exact same size right there. So that's the the little bug for their SVG file. that if you're using it, you will have to resize until maybe they fix it, or maybe I just need to figure out how to make it not go out. But that's no big deal to resize by that %. So that's the envelope template. Well, I did that yesterday, but today when I went back to look at it, that site changed, and they added a lot of stuff, and I couldn't help but play with some stuff today. You might want to play with it too. There are some really interesting kind of projects here that are all equally as easy to use. They have this dimensional star, a bag, a cone, a milk carton. There's a pillow box and a box with an attached lid, a heart box, just a box with a detachable lid, a card box. The one that I thought I would like to try was, there's a matchbox. I wanted to try this polygon-shaped box. I really like hexagons, so I'll show you what I did with that. Do you have any questions so far on the envelope?
No questions so far. There's just a comment from Penny, and you'll see that on your PDF, that this is the site that used to be called www.ideogram.nl/boxmaker.
Right, and I have that link at the MTC Toots, and that's the link that I use, and it took me to this new site today. So that was a brand new thing. Well, so I got to playing with it, and I made this, imported this heart-shaped one. This one has a flap that goes around the top, but it doesn't glue shut. So if you wanted it to glue shut for little things that might fall out, you can adjust it a little. This is the one that I had a lot of fun making. It's this hexagon shape, and I made it into a little lantern or a gift box for Mother's Day. Then there's a bag. So I thought I'd show you how I did this lantern, if anybody is interested. Should I go ahead and show you how to do that?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So in order to make this, I'll walk you through the process. This is the heart box. Notice that it's got a real long thing here, so your heart box turns out pretty small unless you remove this end like this. Then you can make it bigger, and with a flap you can attach it. This was the bag. Had a little problem getting these holes to close, but the way it printed out, it worked fine. Then this is the hex box. I just imported it here and resized it so that it would fill my 12 by 12 paper. And then I thought, you know, what if I want windows in my box, to maybe make it a cookie box and wanted people to be able to see in, or I could have a whole bunch of windows, a window on each side. So I just added windows to fit the sides, and then another square, the white square representing acetate, cutting acetate. So there's the acetate cuts here, and then windows for the box here. So when I put the boxes, the windows on the box, and then selected the box and the windows, and then hid the score lines, then I was able to just do a join using the join icon, and it made holes in the box. Then I could cut the acetate to fill in, to cover the holes, and glue the acetate on before I assembled the box. Then another option is to fill in these boxes with whatever you want. And I thought, well, for Mother's Day, I'll do some flowers. So I did some flowers, and it came out like this. I used this six-pointed star, since I had a hexagon theme, to make these little flowers, and then welded all the, I did a shadow. So I can show you how to do this. It's pretty quick. I click on the import basic shapes, and I just type found the 6-point star, double click that, and this is the technique that we used a long time ago to create a flower out of a star. To do that, you just, with the star selected, you click on the shadow icon, and I'll just shadow it at about a 0.1, increase it until the outside shape looks more like a flower. So the more rounded that I get, I use a corner join around, it starts taking shape like a flower. So I accept that. And I get rid of the star in the middle. I don't need it. Just select it and hit delete. Now I want to do an inset shadow. I click on this, and I'm going to put a minus 0.2, I think. No, I think I used a 1. Minus 0.1. Yeah, that's good. And that gave me a little frame here. If I select them both and join, then I've got a frame. I think that's still too skinny. I'm going to undo Control Z, undo. We'll try it one more time. Maybe I'll do a minus 0.15. I want this frame to have some substance so it doesn't cut too thin. And then join. Now I have one of these, and I just made a bunch of these various sizes to kind of fill in the box. So if I take this, I'm going to copy it, Control C. I'm going to go back to this window here and do Control Shift V, which pastes in place. Then I can start overlapping this shape and duplicating it, as long as it kind of undo. I like to, let's see, box. Copy this as the size of my window. And come back over here, Control Shift V. And from there, I just used Control and Shift and drag a flower off and resize it. So I made a number of these. And the way you could do any shape. If you wanted to do it for Father's Day, you might do stars. But the way I filled in the shape was to, I'm going to select this and send it to the top, move layer to bottom so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to overlap each of these shapes either on the edge of the box or on another shape. And just continue until I have the box full. And you can, so sometimes I needed to rotate them. So click to get the rotate handle and overlap. And then I can make a number of these. I can Control Shift and drag again. Oops, got the wrong one. And just make as many as you want. Once you have them overlapped the way you want, and I could duplicate and overlap them. And flip them and mirror them however you like. making sure they're overlapping the shapes or the edge. And then I can select them all, at least all the stars. I don't need to select the box. And weld. Once they're all welded, then I can copy that and take it over to my windows here. I'm going to type Control-Shift-V and show you that when I add it to a window, and notice that the shape is behind the actual box. I'm going to hold the Shift key and select my box, then I'm going to weld. Hopefully it won't crash. Looks like it's going to crash. It's welding all the paths together. And now I have the shapes in a window. If I wanted to do all of them at one time, I'd do Control-Z to undo and just move that back. What I did, do Control-Z again. What I did was I made one set of these, and then I used Edit Duplicate to make 6 sets and separated them by 1.15 inches so that I had not just one set of these, but I had 6 of them. So if I get this over here in place and I go Edit, Duplicate, Duplicate, I have 1 row, 6 columns, and I think I use 0.15, maybe a little bit more for this particular set. You can just type in any number that works for you and then apply. And then you can copy the whole thing into your design. I select them all, go to Edit, Copy, and go back here, Control-Shift-V, Edit, Paste, and then move them into position. And if I like the way they look, right arrow over a little so they're overlapping. Then I can select, I'll hide my score lines before I weld. That will help. And then weld. Much faster without the score lines showing, I think. So you could use stars or you can use flowers. Oh, it didn't like that. Undo.
I think you still had your windows that you were talking about earlier still in there. The acetate and the other windows. Turn off your third layer.
Yeah, you're right. So now I'll show the. I don't have acetate layers on this.
I think you have the rectangles there, so just move the stars up to their own layer. Just select your stars, move them up to a different layer, and then close that third layer.
I also like to join the stars, or whatever shapes I'm going to weld. So I'm going to join them, and then move them to their own layer. Yeah, you're right, I had the acetate open. So when that welded, it hit it all. But the other thing I don't want is that I don't want these on top because they'll change the color. So I'm going to move that layer to the bottom. And now, the other thing that I notice about this is that there's not enough connector to the right side. Let me open this layer and send that to the top. I'll hide that layer. It's very helpful to have something in that lower corner. And one other thing that I did, I didn't want them all the same, so I flipped every other one. And it's helpful to have each shape welded to another shape in at least 2 places. I just quickly did this one for demonstration purposes. So if I kind of weld that to this shape, you can see that I'd probably get a little better connection, top and bottom. Now I'll move that layer to the bottom. Move layer to the bottom and select all and then weld. And the acetate layer is for cutting out of the acetate separately, and you would glue that in before you start assembly. And that's kind of important if you want the acetate window. It's not necessary if you've got if you're going to do a little lantern, like I think I'm going to do with mine. I really like those cute lanterns. So when I cut this, I can cut it all at once. But I'd like to show you some pictures and give you some cutting hints here. This is the envelope. Let's see. Got a slideshow and I want to go to the next one. Learn how to use it. This is the bag. These are the boxes and the heart box. So this is the lantern that I made, and I kind of did this in steps, but this particular picture, you see where the score lines did the dashes in this heavy cardstock. This is Whirlwind Double Mates. It's got one color on one side and another color for the outside, and I really like the effect of that. But I don't like the effect of the dashed score lines on this heavy cardstock, because especially two-tone, you can see the inside color through the slashes. So this is where you might want to make your score lines solid and use a scoring tool, or use a embossing tool, or your blade reduced pressure to give you that a better look. Now this one shows how you fold it. You do a valley fold here and a mountain fold here, and then before you glue anything, you fold on all your score lines, and you'd put your acetate in at this point, or even before folding, and then you can get it ready, glued together, and the top is open like this. You can see the score lines here, valley fold and mountain fold. And then you just push down on the top and it pushes all together like a flower. It's really pretty, but again, you see the places where the score lines are, and I think that's why I would want to use a solid line for scoring. And then we end up with this lovely box. So I was just going to show the envelope tonight, but after I got this made, I thought, oh, I got to show you that.